Most people trying to declutter their homes keep buying more storage solutions. But in Japan, the secret to immaculate living spaces isn't what you add, it's what you deliberately leave out. The paradox of the clean Japanese home. Walk into the average Japanese home and something immediately feels different. The surfaces are clear, the floors are open. There's a sense of calm that most Western interiors, even tidy ones, rarely achieve. And yet, if you look closely, you won't find the usual arsenal of organizational gadgets, storage towers, or decorative fillers that fill the shelves of home improvement stores everywhere else in the world. For years, people in the West have been fascinated by this aesthetic. Books on KonMari have sold millions of copies. Minimalist YouTube channels rack up hundreds of millions of views. And still, most people go home, buy a new set of drawer dividers, and wonder why their space never quite feels that way. The answer isn't about buying the right product. It's about understanding a set of cultural values and daily habits so deeply embedded in Japanese life that they've shaped not just how people organize their homes, but how they think about objects, space, and the relationship between the two. In this video, we're going to explore 5 specific items that are conspicuously absent from most Japanese homes, and more importantly, we're going to dig into the cultural reasoning behind those absences. Because understanding the why is what makes the how actually stick. The cultural foundation, Wabi-Sabi, and the philosophy of space. Before we get into the specific items, it's important to lay the cultural groundwork, because without it, the list of absences just seems like arbitrary minimalism. Japanese spatial philosophy is built on a few key concepts that most Westerners encounter only as abstract ideas, but which Japanese people absorb from childhood as lived reality. The first is a Japanese concept that translates loosely as negative space or interval. In architecture, music, and daily life, refers to the intentional emptiness between things. It's not the absence of something valuable, it is itself valuable. A room with clear floor space isn't an unfinished room. It's a room where is honored. This is fundamentally different from how most Western cultures think about empty space, which tends to be treated as a problem to be solved, a gap to be filled. The second concept is Wabi-Sabi, the appreciation of impermanence, imperfection, and incompleteness. Where Western design often strives for polished completeness, Wabi-Sabi finds beauty in the worn, the simple, and the unfinished. This philosophy discourages accumulation of decorative items because decoration for its own sake conflicts with the acceptance of natural simplicity. The third is a concept called Danshari, which became widely discussed in Japan in the 2000s. Danshari combines 3 characters: refusing, disposing, and separating. It's a practice of refusing unnecessary items before they enter your home, disposing of things that no longer serve a purpose, and separating yourself emotionally from attachment to objects. Together, these 3 philosophies create a cultural immune system against clutter, one that operates long before you ever need to organize anything. 1. Decorative throw pillows. Let's start with something that will surprise a lot of people: decorative throw pillows. In Western homes, particularly in the United States and Europe, throw pillows have become almost a default feature of any living room or bedroom. Walk into a furniture showroom, and every sofa is buried in them. Interior design accounts on Instagram stack them in elaborate arrangements. There's even an entire industry of seasonal throw pillow covers. In most Japanese homes, you simply won't find this. The sofas, when there are sofas, which is itself less common than you might expect, are typically bare or have at most one functional cushion. The reasoning is layered. First, throw pillows serve no consistent function. They must be removed before you sit down and replaced when you get up, which is a small but daily friction that Japanese design philosophy tends to eliminate. Second, they collect dust, require washing, and lose their shape, all forms of maintenance that add to the cognitive and physical load of maintaining a home. Third, and most importantly, they are purely decorative. In a design philosophy rooted in Wabi-Sabi and decoration that exists solely to fill visual space is seen as unnecessary, even slightly dishonest, in the sense that it's performing a completeness that the space doesn't require. Japanese seating culture also plays a role here. Traditionally, many Japanese living spaces use floor cushions called zabuton for seated activities, and these are functional, foldable, and stored when not in use. The Western habit of permanent decorative pillows is, from a Japanese perspective, a bit like leaving your dining chairs out in the middle of the room even when no one is eating. 2. Visible cleaning supplies and appliance clutter. This one surprises people because on the surface, it seems counterintuitive. How does a clean home avoid cleaning supplies? The answer is that Japanese homes don't avoid cleaning. They clean constantly and frequently. What they avoid is the visible storage of cleaning equipment as a kind of ambient presence in the room. In many Western kitchens and bathrooms, you'll find a dish drying rack permanently on the counter, a sponge holder beside the sink, a bottle brush, dish soap, hand lotion, and various other items sitting out as permanent fixtures. In the average Japanese kitchen, none of these are visible during non-use. After washing dishes, the dishes are dried immediately and put away. The drying rack itself is often folded and stored. Cleaning supplies are kept in dedicated enclosed storage rather than displayed near the sink. This practice connects to a deeply ingrained Japanese concept called soji, the regular cleaning ritual. In Japanese schools, children participate in daily cleaning of their classrooms, hallways, and bathrooms. This isn't punishment. It's a taught value that cleaning is a communal and personal responsibility, not a reactive chore. Because cleaning is done so consistently and frequently, the home never reaches a state where multiple cleaning tools need to be simultaneously accessible. There's also a concept of place for everything, taken to a much more rigorous degree than in Western homes. Every object has a designated storage location, and the expectation is that it returns there immediately after use. This removes the low-level decision fatigue of, where should I put this? That leads to items accumulating on surfaces. Counters stay clear because the cultural default is storage, not display. 3. The junk drawer and what replaces it. Almost every home in the West has one. It might be in the kitchen, the hallway, or a side table. It contains batteries, rubber bands, old takeout menus, a pen that may or may not work, a key to something you've forgotten, and approximately 47 other objects of uncertain purpose. It is the junk drawer, and it is so universal in Western culture that it has become a comedic shorthand for domestic disorder. Japanese homes, broadly speaking, do not have junk drawers. This isn't because Japanese people are more inherently tidy. It's because the junk drawer is a symptom of a particular decision-making culture around objects, and Japanese home philosophy addresses that culture at the root. The junk drawer exists because of deferred decisions. An object comes into the home, its purpose is unclear or temporary, and rather than deciding what to do with it, you defer that decision by putting it somewhere accessible but non-specific. Over time, the deferred decisions accumulate. The Japanese practice of Danshari, which we mentioned earlier, operates at exactly this moment, the moment an object enters the home. Rather than asking, "Where should I put this?" the practice asks, "Should this be here at all?" Items that don't have a clear, defined home within the household system are questioned at entry, not managed after accumulation. What replaces the junk drawer isn't another organizing system, it's a tighter filter on what enters the home in the first place. Receipts are processed immediately or digitized. Tools are returned to their specific storage location. Objects without a purpose are not kept just in case. The KonMari method, which became internationally famous, is actually a relatively accessible export of this broader cultural orientation. The question, "Does this spark joy?" is a simplified version of the deeper question, "Does this object have a legitimate, defined place in my life?" 4. Permanent furniture as room dividers. This section requires understanding something fundamental about how Japanese residential architecture works, because it reveals an organizing principle that most Western home dwellers never consider: the relationship between furniture and space flexibility. In traditional Japanese architecture, interior walls are not necessarily permanent. Fusuma, sliding paper panels, and shoji screens are used to divide or open spaces depending on need. A single large room can become two smaller rooms for sleeping and be returned to one open space for daytime activities. This architectural tradition has shaped a fundamental orientation toward furniture. Heavy, permanent, room-dividing furniture is culturally unfamiliar. Walk through a typical Western living room, and you'll often find large bookshelves, entertainment centers, or storage units that function as de facto room dividers, anchoring the space and making rearrangement nearly impossible. These pieces also become gravity wells for accumulation. The top of the bookshelf gets used as a display surface. The space beside the entertainment center fills with cables and accessories. The furniture itself becomes a site of clutter. Japanese homes favor lower furniture profiles. Furniture that sits close to the floor creates a sense of visual space, even in a small room. It also discourages surface accumulation. A low table simply has less surface area for objects to colonize. Storage tends to be built into walls rather than freestanding, which eliminates the sides, tops, and gaps that collect objects in Western arrangements. The practical result is that a Japanese room can be used for multiple purposes across a single day in a way that a Western room typically cannot. The floor is a functional surface for exercise, for children's play, for meditation, for guests sleeping on a futon that is otherwise stored in a closet. This multi-use orientation means clutter on the floor is not just aesthetically problematic, it's a functional obstruction. 5. Excess seasonal and holiday decor. Japan has rich seasonal traditions. The country celebrates a deeply felt relationship with the changing seasons. There are entire cultural rituals around cherry blossom season in spring, the autumn maple leaves, the heat of summer, and the stark beauty of winter. Seasonal awareness is woven into food, clothing, poetry, and home life. And yet, the accumulation of seasonal decorative objects that many Western homes experience, boxes of Christmas ornaments, Halloween decorations, Valentine's Day tablecloths, 4th of July bunting, is largely absent from the Japanese home model. The difference is instructive. Japanese seasonal acknowledgement tends to be minimal and intentional. A single branch of plum blossoms in a vase during late winter, a specific type of sweet served during cherry blossom season, a wind chime hung during summer. These acknowledgements are temporary, specific, and often consumable or natural. They don't require permanent storage infrastructure. The contrast with Western seasonal decorating is stark. In the US alone, the storage industry has identified holiday decoration storage as a major product category. There are entire product lines of stackable bins, wreath storage bags, and tree storage cases designed specifically for objects that are used for a few weeks per year and stored for the remaining 50. From a Japanese perspective, this represents an enormous amount of storage overhead for objects that exist purely to signal seasonality, a signal that can be made more elegantly and impermanently. This also connects back to Wabi-Sabi. The beauty of a season is partly in its transience. The cherry blossom is precious because it falls after 2 weeks. Preserving seasonal decoration in plastic bins and returning to the same ornaments every year is, in some ways, the opposite of seasonal appreciation. It's seasonal repetition. Japanese seasonal acknowledgement celebrates the passing of time. Western seasonal decorating often tries to recreate the same fixed moment. The role of genkan. How the entrance changes everything. To understand Japanese home cleanliness, you have to understand the genkan, the entryway threshold that acts as a physical and symbolic boundary between the outside world and the interior of the home. In Japanese homes, there is almost always a recessed entry area, typically tiled or stone, where shoes are removed before stepping up into the living space. This is not merely a cleanliness practice, though it is remarkably effective as one. Studies have found that removing shoes at the door reduces indoor floor contaminants significantly. More importantly, the genkan functions as a mental transition zone. The act of removing your shoes is a ritualized crossing from public to private, from the world of work and street to the world of home and rest. It resets your mental state and signals that you are entering a space with different rules. The genkan also solves a storage problem that many Western homes manage poorly: shoe clutter. In homes without a dedicated removal point, shoes tend to accumulate near the front door, creating one of the most common clutter zones in Western interiors. The genkan has built-in shoe storage, typically a getabako, a shoe cabinet positioned at the entry, that contains this category of object at the perimeter of the home rather than allowing it to migrate inward. The deeper organizational lesson of the genkan is about designed transition points. When a home has a well-designed entry ritual, a place to put coats, shoes, bags, and keys, objects are processed at the boundary and don't travel through the living space looking for a place to land. Many professional organizers working in Western contexts have tried to replicate this function with entryway benches, hooks, and cubbies, but without the cultural expectation that objects stop there. The system frequently breaks down. The genkan works because it's backed by a firm social norm, not just a furniture arrangement. Small spaces as a design constraint, and a teacher Japan's residential density is among the highest in the developed world. Tokyo, Osaka, and other major cities have some of the most expensive and compact living spaces on Earth. The average Japanese home is significantly smaller than the average American home. In fact, The average new home in Japan is roughly half the floor area of the average new home in the United States. This constraint has been a powerful teacher. When you cannot expand your space, you must optimize your relationship with objects. Accumulation has immediate, tangible consequences. You run out of room. This forces a kind of ongoing negotiation with possessions that doesn't occur in the same way in larger homes, where there is always another shelf, another closet, another garage bay to absorb new acquisitions. But here's what's interesting. Japanese spatial efficiency practices have not stayed confined to small urban apartments. They have permeated the culture broadly, even in suburban and rural homes with more space. This suggests that the practices have become culturally internalized, rather than remaining merely a pragmatic response to constraint. One-in, one-out principle, where acquiring a new object means releasing an old one, is practiced widely, regardless of available space, because it reflects a value about the appropriate relationship between a person and their possessions, not just a response to square footage. Western countries have recently begun to see this pattern emerge as well, partly through the influence of Japanese organizational philosophy, and partly through a generational shift in values. Younger homeowners and renters are increasingly choosing smaller spaces deliberately and developing intentional practices around what they keep. The Japanese experience suggests that the outcome of this shift is not deprivation, it's a heightened appreciation for the objects you do keep and a reduction in the mental load of managing possessions you don't actually value. The practice of Omoiyari, objects and consideration for others. Omoiyari is a Japanese concept that translates roughly as empathy or consideration for others, but it extends beyond interpersonal relationships into how you manage your physical space in relation to shared life. In the context of the home, Omoiyari means that how you manage your possessions is an expression of consideration for the people you share space with. Leaving objects on shared surfaces, allowing clutter to accumulate in common areas, or maintaining personal possessions in a way that burdens others with their management. These are, through the lens of Omoiyari, not just organizational failures but social ones. They impose a visual and physical load on the people who share your space. This reframes home organization entirely. In many Western frameworks, organizing is a personal project. You do it for yourself, when you feel motivated, according to your own preferences. In a Japanese framework, how you manage your space is a form of care for others. This social dimension creates a much more consistent motivation than personal preference alone, because it ties behavior to deeply held relational values. This also explains a feature of Japanese households that visitors often notice. Shared spaces are maintained to a higher standard than private spaces. The living room, kitchen, and entryway are kept clear and clean as an expression of hospitality and consideration. Personal rooms, particularly those of teenagers, may reflect more Western-style accumulation. Because those spaces are personal rather than shared, the social obligation is lower. Understanding Omoiyari helps explain why Japanese organizational practices are so durable. They're not maintained through willpower or motivation. They're maintained through social values that activate every time you interact with the people around you. What Japanese homes do have: intentional curation. It's important not to leave the impression that Japanese homes are empty or cold. They are not. What they have is intentional and often exquisite. The absence of clutter makes the objects that are present more visible, more meaningful, and more appreciated. This is the positive side of minimalism that sometimes gets lost in Western discussions, which tend to focus on what you eliminate rather than what you elevate. A Japanese home might have a single tokonoma, an alcove in a traditional room, containing one carefully chosen scroll, one ceramic vase with a single flower or branch, and perhaps a small sculpture. This arrangement changes seasonally, sometimes monthly. Each object in the tokonoma is considered. It was chosen to be there, and its presence has meaning. The surrounding emptiness isn't absence, it's the frame that makes the object significant. Even in contemporary Japanese homes without a traditional tokonoma, this curatorial sensibility persists. A kitchen might have one beautiful ceramic bowl on the counter, not because there isn't storage space for it, but because it was chosen to be visible, because it is beautiful and used daily. Books on a shelf are often books that are actively being read or reread, not an archive of everything ever purchased. Art on walls is minimal and meaningful. This is the deepest lesson of Japanese home philosophy for people interested in organization. The goal is not to have less. The goal is to have exactly what you've chosen. Every object in a curated space carries a kind of positive weight because it passed through a filter of intentional selection. Every object in a cluttered space carries a kind of negative weight because it represents an unresolved decision. The Japanese home, at its best, is a space where everything has been decided, and that sense of resolution is what creates the calm that visitors feel when they walk in. Practical takeaways: applying these principles without moving to Tokyo. Understanding Japanese home philosophy is illuminating. But the question most viewers are asking is, how do I actually apply any of this in my home, which is a Western house or apartment filled with years of accumulated objects and habits that won't change overnight? The most transferable principle is the entry filter. You don't need a traditional genkan, but you can create a decision point at the entry of your home, a place where objects are assessed before they travel into living spaces. This means having a specific place for coats, shoes, bags, and keys at the door, and maintaining the habit of using it. Mail gets sorted at the door. Recycling goes directly into the bin. Action items go to one specific place, and nothing gets put down temporarily in a living space. The second transferable practice is the object has a home principle. For every category of item in your house, there should be one designated storage location. The challenge is that most people have objects for which no storage location has been defined. These are the items that end up on counters and tables. Rather than adding more surface storage, the practice is to either define a storage home for the object or question whether it should be in your home at all. The third takeaway is about maintenance cadence. Japanese cleaning culture is built on frequency rather than intensity. A 10-minute daily reset, returning objects to their designated locations, clearing surfaces, doing dishes immediately, prevents the accumulation that makes weekend cleaning sessions feel overwhelming. The goal is to never let the entropy build to a level that requires a major intervention. Finally, consider the curatorial question. For any object you're unsure about, ask not just, do I use this, but have I chosen this? An object you use but haven't really chosen, that came with a gift set, that you bought impulsively, that you kept because you felt guilty discarding it, still carries the cognitive weight of an unresolved decision. The Japanese approach encourages resolving those decisions actively, rather than deferring them indefinitely. The broader cultural shift, what the West is learning. The international popularity of Japanese organizational philosophy, from Marie Kondo's KonMari method to the global spread of minimalist design aesthetics inspired by Japanese architecture, reflects something larger than a home organization trend. It reflects a growing discomfort, particularly in post-industrial Western societies, with the relationship between consumption and well-being. For most of the 20th century, acquisition was synonymous with success in Western consumer culture. A full home was a prosperous home. Storage solutions that allowed you to keep more stuff were a product category because keeping more stuff was the goal. The organizational challenge was framed as, how do I manage all of these things? The Japanese question, why do I have all of these things? Was rarely asked. The cultural conversation has shifted significantly. Research in behavioral psychology has documented what most people intuitively feel. Cluttered environments increase cortisol levels, impair focus, and reduce the sense of personal control. The physical environment of your home shapes your mental state in ways that are measurable and significant. This has given Japanese organizational principles a scientific backing that has accelerated their adoption beyond niche design circles. At the same time, it's worth approaching Japanese home philosophy with some cultural humility. The practices we've discussed emerge from a specific historical, geographic, and cultural context. Small home sizes, specific architectural traditions, deeply embedded social values, and a particular relationship with consumption and waste all contribute to Japanese spatial culture. Transplanting the aesthetic without understanding the cultural roots, buying a minimalist lamp and 3 Japanese ceramics while leaving the underlying decision-making habits unchanged, is unlikely to produce lasting results. The most honest takeaway is that Japanese home philosophy offers a genuinely different set of values to try on, about what spaces are for, what objects are for, and what the relationship between people and possessions can look like. Whether you adopt those values is a personal choice, but understanding them clearly, as we've tried to do in this video, is the necessary first step. The absence as the message. We started this video with a question. Why do Japanese homes feel so calm and clean, even without the storage products and organizational systems that Western home improvement culture sells as the solution to clutter? The answer, as we've explored, is that the cleanliness of a Japanese home is not the output of an organizational system, it's the expression of a set of values. The 5 absences we examined, decorative throw pillows, visible cleaning clutter, the junk drawer, room-dividing furniture, and excess seasonal decoration, are not arbitrary. Each one reflects a deeper principle, that objects should have a purpose, that space itself has value, that maintenance should be continuous rather than reactive, that the home is a shared environment, deserving of consideration, and that seasonal beauty is found in impermanence rather than accumulation. What makes these ideas powerful is not that they're exotic or uniquely Japanese. It's that they offer a coherent alternative to a set of assumptions about objects and space that many people in the West have never thought to question. The junk drawer feels inevitable until you encounter a cultural system in which it simply doesn't arise. The throw pillow feels decorative until you consider that its decorative function comes at the cost of a small daily friction and a regular maintenance burden. None of this means you need to empty your home or abandon the objects that genuinely matter to you. The goal of Japanese home philosophy, understood correctly, is not aesthetic austerity, it's intentionality. A home where every object has been chosen, every space has a purpose, and every day begins with a clean surface is not a deprivation, it's a form of clarity. And if this video has offered you even one new lens through which to look at your own space, that's exactly what we were hoping to do.